So we start with the French Gothic. The Gothic is most famous and best known in France. And the Gothic style first appears in France around 1140. Eventually it will spread all over Europe, and the first place that we're going to see it developing in France is going to be at Saint-Denis. This is the birthplace of the Gothic. This is an old abbey church named for the patron saint of France. And it's the burial site of the French monarchy for about 500 years, and it's meant to be a monumental structure. But looking at it initially here, you may sit there and be a little disappointed. How can this be the first Gothic cathedral? It's awfully small. But remember, they have to start somewhere. We see a facade that looks like it's meant to have two towers, although one is they only ever build one. That's not uncommon. We'll see a number of cathedrals that have either just one bell tower or two mismatching. One other thing I should point out, a cathedral by definition is not simply a large church. It's actually what's known as a bishopric. And once you stop laughing at the term bishopric, a bishopric is the home church for a bishop in a specific diocese. In the Milwaukee Diocese, the bishopric is at St. John's on the Square. In Madison, I don't know where it is right now since St. Raphael's burned down. In La Crosse, I believe it is St. James Church. So different dioceses have different bishoprics. Wherever the bishop practices, their home church is a cathedral by definition. So a cathedral is not necessarily a large church. Getting that out of the way. Let's take a look at this. And here we have Saint-Denis on the right, Saint-Etienne on the left. And we see the architecture is very, very similar. We see this sort of massive facade with our windows, except in the case of Saint-Denis, we have some differences. So we have a much more elaborate facade, more sculpture. We see the doors are being set back into that facade through those deep set portals. We see an emphasis on verticality. So everything is sort of drawing your eye up. We see an alternating blind arcade and windows. So what we see here is a window with a blank space in between, or a window in the center with two blank spaces on either side, called a blind arcade. And we see a rose window. Now this will be built by a very famous abbot by the name of Suger, and he's renovating an old Carolingian building. Now here's the old original church in gray, sort of this hatched gray here. And originally he's simply trying to expand the structure, but of course he goes a little bit further. He'll build a narthex, which is our entryway out on the west side of the building, out here. And he will construct a new choir, which is arguably the most important element right in here. And that choir is going to be key. We'll see why in a minute. He also widens the nave. So you see the nave has been widened from the original structure to the new structure, but it does give you a sense of scale. Saint-Denis is not immense. So let's talk about that choir and the ambulatory. So we see sacred geometry, and what we see more to the point is windows. Lots of windows, lots of light coming in. And that's because when you look at the floor plan of the choir, you'll notice there really aren't walls. Instead, we have basically a column and a window, a column and a window, and that repeats all the way around, bringing in a great deal of light. It also creates a very integrated space. The columns are set up so that we have a nice, clean ambulatory or walkway around the choir. We see the use of rib vaults, which are key to the Gothic. We see pointed arches and very slender columns. These columns are only a couple of feet wide. We're no longer dealing with columns that are 12 and 15 feet wide. and articulates this idea of what's called Lux Nova, Lux space Nova, which is a term meaning new light in French. That idea that the more light that's coming in, the more likely God is present within the structure, and the more that it becomes a miracle to the people coming into it.